Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Fish, the previously and hopefully might soon be again weekly series where I answer your questions on Discord. So don't forget to join our server if you got a question for a future episode. Link in the description. Praise the algorithm by smacking a like on the video if you're going to enjoy it. That actually massively helps out the channel. For every like, I will give Pringle an ear scratch. She just had her ACL repaired and is donning the cone of shame. So huge thanks from the both of us. And with that, let's jump into one of your questions. C asks, hey Hunter, you know what time of year it is, so have you seen the new Epiphone lineup, especially the new Futura series? New pickups, ebony fretboards, and stainless steel jumbo frets at $1,000 seems like a better deal than LTD at this current state. Also, the clearly not James Hetfield signature Explorer. Yeah, so I actually couldn't believe what I was seeing when these popped up on my Instagram feed. I've been dealing with a lot of life stuff recently, and unfortunately I haven't been able to keep up with all the new gear releases or nerd out on all the details with you guys like I normally like to, but this is actually one of the few things I have looked into, and I have to tell you guys, what C Ellipses mentioned is already actually very crazy for Epiphone, but he didn't even mention what I'd consider one of the coolest parts of what Epiphone revealed.
You happy? Yeah, we happy.
So I figured now's as good a time as any to actually do my job. So I've turned on the camera and let's take a closer look at just what Epiphone has been up to. And the first thing we definitely have to talk about is the Futura series, or Futura series. I think that's how I heard a Gibson employee pronounce it once, but anyways, we move. Actually, we don't move because I'm already going to go on a quick tangent, but I feel like Gibson needs to come up with a new word because Futura refers to so much shit at this point, and so much different shit too. But this time we legitimately move. So anyways, Gibson's newest use of the Futura name is for a new Epiphone series that's arguably the most modern spec in Gibson's entire current production lineup. They've only been revealed, they aren't actually listed yet anywhere on any site. Nothing's available for pre-order, so we don't know like the full details yet, but from what we know so far, these look promisingly sick. So far, the confirmed models in the series are the Les Paul, the Explorer, the Flying V, the Firebird, and the RD Customs. Yes, dude, it's been missing from the lineup since Lee Malia's Artisan RD. That was discontinued in 2019, and in my demo, I got mixed up between the words artisan and artesian. We move, but Epiphone is finally bringing the cult classic RD back in modern Futura series form. Now, each of these Futura guitars have Ibanez-like bright color shifting finishes. The ones that were showing off at the show were Firestorm Shift, Dragonfly Shift, Midnight Ember Shift, Quicksilver Shift, and Twilight Shift. That's paired with chrome appointments, including the pickup rings and emerald control knobs, compound radius ebony fingerboards with the Super 400 inlays, which are the inlays from the USA Supremes. And the Futuras are the first Epiphone series ever to feature stainless steel frets across the line. Thank you, finally Epiphone. Welcome to the world of modern spec guitars. Actually, these are probably the first stainless steel frets on a production series in the entire Gibson family guitars. And since the Futuras are part of the Inspired by Gibson range, I believe, or at least at the equivalent level, we've got Grover locking tuners, the Les Paul has that derpy Kalamazoo headstock, and not Gibson USA, but proprietary Epiphone import pickups. New high output ProBucker ignites, custom voiced for the new Futura series and splittable via the push-pull control pots. Now, my experience with other pickups that have ProBucker in the name, and specifically ones that use hotter ceramic magnets, has me a little skeptical, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Epiphone have put so much effort into making everything else about this series, the finishes, the specs, the model choices. Everything looks super promising. Obviously the Les Paul, but that RD and the Firebird, man, super cool. There's no way they'd let it all down with meh tone, would they? There's no way, right? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, maybe it's just me, but it's kind of confusing where the Futura line is supposed to sit compared to the Prophecy line, because they're both very modern focused, at least as far as Gibson and Epiphone go, but in different ways. Both of them have locking tuners, larger jumbo frets. With these, you've got the stainless steel frets and the compound radius fingerboards, Meanwhile, the Prophecies have the higher end fish influences with the exclusive Gibson voicings, which I'm honestly kind of a little surprised they didn't use here, seeing as how well the fluences would fit with the rest of the modern specs. The Futuras have a different vibe to the Prophecies, and we just got a full color refresh for the Prophecy line last year, including the awesome aged white Tiger Burst, so I can't see the line being discontinued anytime soon. As in, I can't see the Futura series directly replacing the Prophecies as the definitive modern Epiphone flagship line. What I can see happening is them doing kind of like a ghost spec update for the Prophecies with stainless steel frets across the line and maybe a compound fingerboard radius as well, paired obviously with a slight price bump. That way you've got a clear series hierarchy of the modern focused Epiphone lines. Although it's actually been a while since I've checked, I did not realize that the Prophecies were up to $1,200 now. Must have been super recent because the prices haven't been updated on Sweetwater yet. But Epiphone has been saying that the Futuras will come in at or just under 1,000-ish. So I guess at least Epiphone still considers the Prophecies their flagship modern series. Although I'd argue that to keep that place with these new Futuras coming in, they are at least due for a stainless steel fret upgrade. As soon as the Futuras drop, the current Prophecies are gonna feel pretty dated without stainless steel frets. Actually, maybe that's the reason the Futuras haven't been launched yet. They're waiting for the old Prophecy stock to dwindle first. Launch the Futuras, then a Prophecy spec update. That's pure speculation on my part, and once we get to that stage, it's time to move on. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. As for whether or not the Epiphone Futuras offer a better deal than what you can get from LTD, like with the EC1000, as like it is in most cases where the specs aren't a one-to-one comparison, it depends. Obviously, specs aren't everything, but at least right now in Sweetwater, there's this one with EMGs, 81, and a 60TW, meaning it's got that dedicated third coil for a true single coil mode, and it's got the absolutely magic Evertune bridge for not that much more than what Epiphone is saying the Futuras will cost. I mean, obviously $300 is a lot of money, but you know what I mean, relatively. And then there's actually a price drop on this one, kind of cream-colored 1000T CTM, so that's the full thickness one, loaded with Fish Influence classics, so you've got the hot overwound vintage passive and single coil voicings. It's like having 3 separate high-end pickup sets in one guitar, and the LTDs come with Tone Pro's hardware, ebony fingerboards, big stainless steel frets, and okay, country of origin doesn't necessarily equate to quality, but world music in South Korea has made most of the higher-end LTDs for years, and they're pretty much the gold standard that every other import factory is measured up against. And there's a reason why everyone wants their guitars made at World. Their reputation for consistent high quality is very well earned. Epiphones though, at least the electrics, not sure about the acoustics, they're all made at Gibson's own factory in China, and at least in my experience, well, in fairness, really no one is consistent as World is, but like sometimes you'll pick up an Epiphone and it'll just be awesome. Like the Les Paul Custom Prophecy, the Jared James Nichols signature, Matt Hafey's Les Paul Origins customs that I made videos on. Super fun, super inspiring guitars. And then other times you pick up an Epiphone that's got great specs, and it just feels super meh. The workmanship isn't that clean, doesn't play great, kind of feels lifeless. Duds are always going to happen with guitars. Wood is a naturally occurring material with natural variance. Even mass guitar production requires a lot of direct human craftsmanship, which again introduces variance. So your mileage may vary, but out of every LTD I've picked up at the 1000 series or equivalent level, never come across a complete dud. And the quality, whether it's out of Korea or out of World's newer Indonesian facility, it just tends to feel super solid. The craftsmanship, the finer details, it's cleaner, feels more premium compared to Epiphone. Again, not putting Epiphone down, just saying LTDs feel really good. Now that I've put that out there, watch the comments fill up about all the shitty LTDs people have tried. Internet just gonna do internet things, but we move. That being said, there's a strong rumor that Sweetwater is especially picky with their quality and are notorious for rejecting guitars that don't meet their strict quality standards, even from the big brands. And if a guitar gets rejected, manufacturers not only have to send Sweetwater a brand new replacement, they also can only list the reject as an open box or a B stock. And apparently it's just less of a pain in the ass to send Sweetwater good guitars the first time around. I highly doubt you'll get any brand to actually verify that. But what I'm saying with this fucking weird tangent is that Sweetwater is definitely where I'm going to be looking first when the Futura series finally drops. Because an RD custom with stainless steel frets, are you kidding, dude? That's too fucking cool. This is not a choice. There is no other option. I need to try that shit at the soonest possible opportunity. And the Les Paul too, obviously. Maybe the Firebird as well? Yeah, I don't know. These all look sick. What else do you want me to say here? Okay, interruption from Future Hunter here. Epiphone decided the best time to officially release the Futuras was right as we finished up this video. But so here's a little update now that we have more concrete details. The Futuri series launch actually includes more shapes than were initially revealed at NAMM. The Explorer Custom comes in Firestorm Shift and in Dragonfly Shift. The RD Custom comes in Midnight Ember Shift and in Twilight Shift. The Les Paul Custom comes in Twilight Shift, in Firestorm Shift, and in Midnight Ember Shift. The Firebird Custom comes in Firestorm Shift, in Midnight Ember Shift, and in Quicksilver Shift. The Flying V Custom comes in Quicksilver Shift and in Solaris Shift. The SG Custom comes in Nitro Shift, in Dragonfly Shift, and in Midnight Ember Shift. And the ES355 comes in Dragonfly Shift and in Firestorm Shift. So they couldn't wait just one day for us to get this video out first, rude, but just a ton of options at launch already. And all of them, even the semi-hollow, have 10 to 14 inch compound radius ebony fingerboards and stainless steel frets, plus posi-lock strap buttons and all the chromified hardware, including the switch tip, and that's actually quite cool. Such a little aesthetic detail that does a lot of work in elevating the overall vibe. And very, very cool that we get proper looks at how the guitars look in different lighting too. Ibanez should definitely be taking notes on how to show off these color shifting finishes. So yeah, now that the final launch lineup has been officially unveiled, my thoughts are essentially the same. These Futura Customs look fucking sick, especially the RD and the Les Paul, and I desperately want to try one. What do you guys think? And while you're letting me know in the comments, I'll let Past Hunter take back over to go through the rest of the breakdown on all the other new Epiphones. Then, it looks like Epiphone is moving towards the same decade-based nomenclature as Gibson uses for their Explorer and Flying V models, and, well, what do you suppose this 80s Explorer in classic white loaded with EMGs is a big ol' wink and a massive nod to? Yeah! And I know it doesn't have his Metal Holiness name on it, and the greatest frontman of all time has never had an official Gibson signature, but like, at what point do you think James Hetfield deserves a fucking royalty check? Because like, everyone knows what this is. Everyone knows why people want an Explorer exactly like this. And it's the exact same reason that Epiphone is going to sell a shitload of them. Either way though, I mean, yeah, I want one too, obviously. Shut up and take my money. Mahogany body and slim taper neck, rosewood fingerboard, EMG's 8160 set. Coincidentally, Hetfield's preferred pre-signature combo. Now, the previous version, the discontinued 1984 Explorer, was a little different in that it straight up copied the control scheme from ESP's MX shape, which, funnily enough, thanks to Gibson, is banned in the US. Meanwhile, this new Explorer 80s has the Gibson period-correct triangle configuration. So I guess you could say this one's more authentic to Hetfield's actual Gibsons from the Ride the Lightning era, that would be the more beer and so what Explorers, versus the previous 1984, which was more of a sneaky tribute to his Eat Fuck ESP. Classic White is the one that they were showing off at NAMM, but on Gibson's own site they have an exclusive ebony version, which for some reason doesn't come out with all blacked out hardware, but you know what? With chrome appointments, it actually looks pretty cool too. And then the Flying V 70s. Now, when I first saw this truly outrageous Maui blue color, I thought, surely this was the Gibson.com exclusive, right? Usually that's the case if there's a crazy color variant like this. But nope, just like with the Explorer 80s, that would actually be this very normal looking ebony version. And so Maui Blue, this is the launch color that will be available at all retailers for the Flying V70s. What an absolute statement of a finish, especially with the matching headstock. Like, my god. So, I haven't quite been able to figure out whether Maui Blue is a real vintage color or not. From what I can tell, no. I think. It seems like the Maui Blue color is a fairly recent, like late 2010s, early 2020s custom shop creation inspired by Bahama Blue, a very rare color originally only used in the early 80s on custom orders, and it looks like the Epiphone might actually be a production version of a limited Japan exclusive custom shop run. That's where I stopped investigating though, because right now I do not need to get stuck down a vintage Gibson / wacky world of Japanese guitars wombo combo rabbit hole, so feel free to leave your corrections down below if Maui Blue is actually a real vintage Gibson color. Anyways, for specs, mahogany body and rounded C-profile neck with that 70s era volute, Grover, Graphtec, CTS, all the standard specs across the Inspired by Gibson line, Epiphone T-Type Pro pickups, which I've not seen before, but I would assume those are import versions of the USA T-types, like in the Les Paul Custom 70s. Interestingly, it's got the later shortened headstock, like Kirk Hammett's 1979 signature. You know, the really sick purple one. That thing is awesome. Whereas the Gibson Flying V70s has the longer 1967 headstock. And it's not like Epiphone don't do the longer headstock. See Jimi Hendrix Love Drops Flying V. So I have no idea why there's that random difference between the Gibson and Epiphone 70s Vs, but okay, sure, I guess. Personally, the Short King headstock looks better, so I'm not mad about that at all. We move. And another difference between the Epiphone and the Gibson? Ebony fingerboard on the Epiphone? Like, what? Outside of, like, the Flying V Custom, at least the non-signature Vs are almost always rosewood, so that's actually really, really cool. Honestly, I was expecting more of like a standard spec Kirk Hammett's 1979 with a more reasonable price tag. Not a surprise ebony fingerboard out of nowhere. Solid mod project potential. And the previous Inspired by Gibson collection Flying V was based on the debut 1958 design, so it had the big gold raised logo, the massive V-shaped string-through plate, the inline control layout, the output jack banished to its own little desert island out there. So compared to the new Flying V70s, both V-shaped, both equally as difficult to play sitting down. I said what I said, but clearly very different vibes. And Epiphone still have the 1958 Flying V in the Inspired by Gibson custom collection, meaning it's got Gibson USA pickups and it's made of actual Carina or white Limba, just like the real vintage original sales flops were. Obviously, higher spec tier, so it's pricier, but it's nice that Epiphone have now got both the classic 50s sales flop and revived 70s flavors of the Flying V in their production lineup. And alongside the upcoming Futura RD Custom and the recent Mike Dirnt Grabber G3 bass, both the Explorer 80s and Flying V70s are part of a larger overall pattern of 70s, 80s appreciation that Epiphone and Gibson have been expressing pretty much since Adam Jones' Silverburst 1979 customs broke the used Norlin market. And as someone who has consistently shouted from the rooftops about how underappreciated Norlin era Gibsons are, or at least some emphasis on how underappreciated and interesting some of the ideas were, it's very cool to see more Norlin-inspired guitars enter the USA and Epiphone production lineups, rather than Gibson pretty much writing that entire part of their history completely off outside of just the custom shop. And speaking of Mike Dirnt's Grabber, that's actually a great segue into signature models, and yes, it's a bass, and yes, this came out last year, but this Grabber G3 signature bass from Mike Dirnt of Green Day still deserves a shout out in case you haven't seen it yet. Firstly, it comes in Silverburst with an ebony fingerboard. That's already a win. Now, even though Silverburst color was introduced during the Gibson Norlin era, original Grabbers were never actually produced in this finish, so it's actually kind of an amalgamation of Norlin elements that could have existed in a parallel Norlin universe. But for the purists, there's also the Gibson.com exclusive Natural, the same color as Mike Dirnt's actual bass that this is modeled after, if for whatever reason you want the period correct, much uglier version. Fender-esque 34-inch scale length, longer than Gibson's normal 30.5-inch scale length, chunky Leo Kwan badass bridge, and the G3 gets its name from the triple Gibson USA single coil pickups wired up in what Gibson calls a buck-and-a-half configuration, basically meaning with the three-way toggle you can select de facto humbuckers with the middle and bridge or middle and neck coils, or you can select all three coils working in unison. And the reason that Mike Dirnt went with Epiphone on this instead of Gibson, by the way, is kind of similar as to why Tom DeLonge's Starcaster is made out of Indonesia rather than in California. Gibson don't make instruments like this in the USA. They literally currently do not have the tools or the personnel in Nashville to do high quality bolt-ons at scale. Like you'll notice, you go through the Gibson USA lineup, it's all set necks, no bolt-ons. Anyways, more than enough about basses, let's move on to signature guitars, starting with the new Lzzy Hale signature, and I'm not even gonna lie, this is so fucking awesome, as all of her signatures really are. Listen, I may or may not be a big fan of Hailstorm's music, incredible live band, and of Lzzy Hale's taste in guitars. A little disappointed that her next Epiphone isn't a more accessible Explorer bird, but only a little disappointed because look at this thing. Similar theme to her Kramer Voyager, reimagined in Explorer custom form, less aggressive shape, two-pneumatic bridge and stop bar tailpiece instead of a Floyd. Sadly, no chrome pickup rings or matching headstock, but that black diamond holographic sparkle, or whatever name Epiphone decides to call it, looks so good in this traditionally classy Explorer custom form, especially with the mirror pickguard and transparent speed knobs. But the bigger story is that this spec list takes cues from the Futura series. The new Lzzy Hale Epiphone is confirmed to have stainless steel frets when it drops later this year. An Explorer custom that looks like this, that comes stock from the factory with stainless steel frets, incredible. Just fucking incredible. Pro Bucker ignites as well, so this is essentially like the first Futura-based signature, and while our other Epiphones have been awesome, it's especially cool that this is an original Epiphone design, not just an affordable version of one of her Gibson signatures. I always love when that happens, and none of her Gibsons have come with stainless steel frets either, so again, very, very cool. Then earlier this year, Epiphone released a signature SG for singer-songwriter Fatoumata Diawara. I hope I didn't just butcher that completely. She's currently based in France, was born in Mali. Super interesting story that's inspired one of the most visually interesting Epiphone SGs in recent memory. My bad, Future Hunter here with a quick correction. Got that totally wrong because I can't read. She was actually born in Cote d'Ivoire to Malian parents, but spent her adolescence growing up in Mali before moving to France at 18. According to Wikipedia, she, quote, briefly returned to Mali for a film role, but fled back to Paris to avoid being coerced into marriage by her family. Yikes, good call. Anyways, back to her signature guitar, inspired by her very interesting background. I mean, look at this thing. Super vibrant, super energetic. Specs are your standard inspired by Gibson affair, apart from the custom C profile, which apparently feels like a nice middle ground between a 50s rounded and a 60s slim taper, so that should give this guitar a unique feel. It's not just a reskin of an existing Epiphone SG model. And personally, I think it's really cool. Definitely not your typical or predictable Epiphone signature. That being said, not really one I'm interested in picking up myself. It's one of those that's too identifiable. Just like with George Lynch's Kamikaze, or Will Adler's Warbird, or James Hetfield's Iron Cross. Doesn't matter who's playing them, who's paid for them, those guitars will always be their guitars, and the same kind of thing here. Looks awesome, stoked for Fatoumata Diawara becoming the first African signature Epiphone artist. God damn it, I should have really looked up how to pronounce her name before I recorded this video. Love the gold hardware, red pickup rings, the red transparent speed knobs. It's just not a guitar that I think I could ever make my own. That will always be her guitar. Then, actually last year, it was revealed that Epiphone were working on an accessible version of Alex Lifeson 1976 Whitey ES335 TD, and it kind of got overlooked with all the other high-profile reveals going on, but at NAMM, they were giving a first look at the prototype. Now, this one is at the Inspired by Gibson custom shop level, so it's got the quote-unquote proper open book headstock, the larger custom bridge, Gibson USA pickups, although I wasn't able to find if they'd confirmed which ones yet, vibrola, Veritone with the dedicated bypass mini toggle, and almost the coolest thing, a semi-transparent tortoiseshell pickguard with outer multiply binding, which I've never seen before. Apparently, this is one of the most requested Epiphone signatures. It's outside of my range of chugga chugga expertise, so if you're a Rush fan, feel free to confirm or deny. And the last thing that Epiphone showed off is that for the first time, the Les Paul double cut figured is joining the production lineup. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm low-key very hyped for these, because this double cut figured model is normally a Gibson custom shop exclusive. I can't even recall a regular Gibson USA production version in recent Gibson history, if there's ever been one. I remember seeing the VOS versions at NAMM 2019 when they were showing off the post-bankruptcy relaunched lineup. That was the first time I'd ever seen one of these. I didn't even know this model existed before then, and I thought, especially with the light aging, they were just the coolest. That was the same NAMM, by the way, that Gibson were also serving Enter Night Pilsners at the booth. I'm telling you, the strong Hetfield-related blueballing has been going on for literally years, but we move. Point is, I was so disappointed back then to learn that this model existed, but if I wanted one, you'd have to shell out a minimum of a few $1,000s. So this inspired by Gibson Epiphone version, no aging, poly finish instead of nitro, pro buckers, but you still get the Grovers, the Graphtec, the CTS, comes in Bourbon Burst and an Ocean Water, the finish that initiated my gas for this model, all for a very reasonable $599. And you have to say, if you get one with a solidly figured veneer, solid mod project potential. So yeah, very cool that this is now a regular production model, and not even at the higher tier Inspired by Gibson custom line, but is part of the very accessible Inspired by Gibson range. And actually, this follows a general revival of the double cut shape across Gibson's lineup. Late last year, they brought the double cut Junior back into the USA production lineup, but now we're getting out of Epiphone and into Gibson stuff, and I've been talking for way longer than I initially intended to, so I think we'll save that and the Mark Morton Les Paul Modern for another video. For now, that's enough rambling from me. Here's where I'll throw it to you. What do you think of the new Epiphone reveals? You like the direction they're heading in? Yes? No? Which model stood out most to you? Any that you want to see demos of on the channel? Any and all thoughts? Drop them down below. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Ask a Fish. Social media, merch, and links to more details on all the gear we talked about are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I will see you for the next video.